Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live right here on Giants.com and the Giants mobile app. John Schmeelk, Jonathan Casillas with you. Big Blue Kickoff Live is presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. JC, it's good to see you, man.
Yeah, same here, brother.
All right, we talked a lot about the Dolphin game when we were done on that post-game show. We don't need to go into that again. Obviously, a lot of news coming up this week, JC. We'll have some word from Brian Daboll here. He's going to address the media in a couple of minutes. This is one of those kind of, to the side with the beat reporter thing, so I'll keep an eye on the Twitter feed, see if he has any other injury news. But obviously, the one we're all keeping an eye on is Daniel Jones. There was an NFL Network report earlier today coming off of their Insiders program with Garofalo, Rappaport, and Pelissero, that Daniel is heading in the wrong direction. That doesn't mean he's not going to play Sunday, but I think preparations are being, Giant fans should mentally prepare for the fact that it could very well be Tyrod Taylor on Sunday night if they haven't already done that. If you do have to go Tyrod instead of Daniel, how do you think that impacts what the Giants might do offensively?
Nothing. No, I don't think so. Tyrod Taylor is very capable of running this offense that, these guys been doing. He's been doing since longer than Daniel Jones been doing, because I guess the transfer over from Buffalo, with Daboll, and he's very similar in the things that he can do. He's a very active quarterback in the pocket. He can move around the pocket. He can create outside the pocket. He can throw on the run. He can run the football. And he's very capable. He's won games in this league. He started in this league, and I talked about this in one of the shows that it's good to have a very experienced, very talented, and as a backup quarterback, as an insurance policy, as Tyrod Taylor. And, now it's going to be, you're going to see him. But look, I don't think it matters who's playing quarterback because the offensive line is the major issue that the Giants seem to kind of, week in and week out. And it's not only just the play, it's the injuries. Attrition has decimated this offensive line, and even when Tyrod came in last week, he was running for his life when he came in the game, so there's a lot of things that I know we need to talk about and we're going to address, and the Giants need to talk about, and they're going to address, but it starts with the offensive line, and I hope they can put up a better showing than they have, especially in the last 2 weeks where they've given up 18 sacks.
Yeah, and that's a lot. And it's just the stat I've been given, Pro Football Focus tracks pressures allowed by just the offensive line. So that takes out pressures allowed by tight ends, running back protection, even pressures created by quarterbacks by rolling into defensive players, right? Okay. So it's just pressures allowed by offensive lines. Last year, the team that led the offensive line, that led the league in number of pressures allowed 212 pressures over the course of a year. Okay? It's a lot. Take a guess at how many the Giants' offensive line is on pace to allow this year.
On pace?
On pace, yes.
250?
325.
Sheesh. What's the current number right now?
50% more than what they allowed all of last year. What are they
the
worst?
The worst team.
Yes.
You're saying the worst team.
Yes, they're the worst team allowed last year. And I just think it's important to stress that this is not a usual bad protection situation. This is a uniquely bad protection situation. Yeah. I could try to find that number for you. I don't.
And man, look, I'm very worried because I watched a guy in Epinesa last week up in London have a career day.
3 sacks, right?
And very disruptive. And I was trying to figure out who he was because we understand who Rousseau is. We understand who Von Miller is, and
we'll see if Rousseau plays. He's
on the injury report. And that very much concerns me. Especially how the Bills like to play defense. And when you watch the Miami game, last week the Giants played Miami, and the Bills people know what the Bills are. They're very conservative on defense. They're pretty much a cover 2, cover 4. They're a coverage team, and they like to allow their front 4 to get there.
Split safety, deep, all that sort of stuff.
The positive thing, and I'm talking about defensively for the Bills, the good thing about that is that you're constantly working with 4 guys rushing the passer. And when you can consistently get pressure with 4 guys, you got 7 guys back in coverage. And when you have 7 guys in zones, they're very masterful about the points and the route concepts because all of the zones, right? they are zone, meaning that their eyes are on the quarterback, which helped the Giants last week get those 2 interceptions against Tua.
And which is, by the way, why the Bills also probably lead the league in takeaways, because they're watching the quarterback.
Right. But then you also get into, once you go man, it's almost a matchup, zone. It's almost a matchup man coverage once the routes progress downfield. Mm-hmm. And I don't think anybody does it really better than Buffalo. They do a really good job in getting pressure with only the front four. And
I think those zone defenses probably force teams to hold the ball a little bit longer, which gives time for the rushers to get home, right?
Which is like, it's almost like a false sense of security.
Right.
Which is like, oh, they have this much time in the pocket. But no, these guys are in zone back there, and they're allowing you to basically throw those underneath routes, but they're also allowing that rush to get there as well because the coverage is so good on the back end. And that scares me, pretty much. Yeah, it scares me. And then, like I said, the arrival of Epinesa last week, I couldn't not see him. And then we watched it here the morning of the Giants game when we were doing the pregame show, and Epinesa was all over it. I watched it again, and man, he had a great game. And he's one of the cogs along the defensive line. Ed Oliver is a dog. He's a beast.
Leads him in pressures.
They have some holes there. I think offensively they didn't run the football well the last couple weeks. And I didn't think they had to really run it against Miami. But last week, I know they wanted to run. They couldn't really run it up in London against Jacksonville. I think they're going to come out because the first 2 drives they had last week against the Jaguars was 2 3-and-outs. And they only had a 3 or 4 3-and-outs leading up to the game. So my thing is with Buffalo, mindset's probably going to be established to run. So we're not getting 3-and-outs. We're not punting the ball because they don't want to punt. This is a team that doesn't want to punt a ball. They want to be explosive on offense. And how do you be explosive on offense? The same reason I said that the Giants have to limit Miami is in the run game, because once you get the run game going, that opens your entire offense up. And I think Buffalo is going to say, we're going to run the ball on the Giants, and that'll open up the pass game to the tremendous pass catchers they have on the outside, and Dawson Knox and Kincaid.
And this is as balanced as Buffalo has been offensively, I think, probably since Josh Allen has emerged, right? They haven't really run the ball all that well the last couple of years with Devin Singletary. But this year with James Cook, they have been running the ball well, to your point, even if they didn't do it well last week against Jacksonville. So it is something to keep an eye on. And then just when it comes to Josh Allen, JC, when he's playing his best football, meaning when he's under control and not just chucking the ball up there to the other team, which, by the way, he has those games. And if that happens Sunday night, anything can happen. We'll see. But when he's that combination of when he wants to be a scalpel and he just picks you apart, but also the sledgehammer when he runs you over and throws that 70-yard pass down the field, when he plays his best, he might be the best quarterback in football.
Yeah.
That's how good he is with this combination of running and passing.
I agree with that. Like, you even watch him last year, you take away those takeaways, he is the best quarterback in the league last year. And then he has Stephon Diggs, who probably consistently being the top five receiver that he is. And we both have him on fantasy, and he makes us win a lot of fantasy games because he's a phenomenal football player.
He does everything well.
He's a phenomenal football player.
Run after catch, speed, you name it.
And Gabe Davis, no slouch either. Both of their tight ends are really good.
2 good tight ends.
Yeah. So this is a big challenge presented for the Giants defense, which finally got a turnover. They got 3 last week. And
too many big plays, though.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. But you know what it is, too? I follow a lot of the Giants guys on social media. And even the things that they were saying after, it's like almost like a false sense of confidence, I think. It's like they understand that they had a hand in actually doing something, for like the first time collectively as a team, because the Giants, let's be honest with this, all units have been pretty poor consistently this year. And it sucks. And I'm trying to use my words very carefully here, Schmeelk. But I don't want them to think that they played well. You know what I mean? Because they really didn't. They gave up 200 and something rushing yards on the ground. They averaged like 10 yards a carry, over 520 yard total. It's not a good game.
And I'm going to go back, rather later today. I'm interviewing Xavier McKinney for our pregame show on Sunday. The first question for him is going to be, Xavier, now that you've gone back and you've rewatched it and you've gone over it this week with Wink and your coaches, What did you think overall of your defensive performance last week? I'm curious to see, now that they've kind of gone through the tape, what they think about it.
Yeah, I mean, because I know even though they did create turnovers, which was phenomenal, this is something that we've talked about literally on every single show leading up to this game every single week, that the defense had to create takeaways because it was 3 weeks without a takeaway. And they finally did it, which is good. But besides the takeaways, it was pretty bad defense, and meaning it wasn't a lot of missed tackles, but it was just guys running for the Miami Dolphins, which is, I mean, they just did what they normally do, because that's not like abnormal for the Dolphins. They do that every single week besides Buffalo game. So they didn't really slow them down, even though they made plays.
Yeah.
They did make plays, but I don't want them to get a false sense of, confidence that you make some plays, 3 or 4 or 5 plays, but like most of the plays, like you were getting gashed, man. And you have to stop that, because this Buffalo offense is maybe not as fast, but as explosive.
Yeah.
Maybe don't have man for man that speed. They don't have 5 guys that can run a 4.2, which I think Miami has. But they are explosive, and they're explosive because Josh Allen can get that ball to anywhere he wants to.
I really want to know when Devon Achane hurt his knee in that game, by the way. Because
Right.
that was him on a bad knee. I kind of want to see what he looks
Right.
like.
Is he out now? Because I heard
He's
people
on
talking
IR,
about,
at least 4
he's on
weeks.
IR.
Yeah, at least 4 weeks.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So
That's interesting.
So my guess is he's probably have to get a scope. Usually that's what that means, right?
Gosh, yeah.
So
even though he's an opponent, I hate guys getting hurt. I'm a former player.
Terrible.
Like every time I hear somebody get hurt, I'm like, oh man, it's so bad. I don't even know the guy.
And I will say this, and this will be the final thing that we do before we take your calls. And I'm going to get to some of your emails too. The number is 201-939-4513. We have a full bank of calls. And send in your emails, by the way, bigbluekickoff@gmail.com. I'll try to get to those as we go too. There might be a little bit of a window here, JC, for the Giants offense. The Bills defense, I feel like some of their issues have been shielded a little bit by all those takeaways they have. They've given up a lot of rushing yards from week to week. Their success rate, EPA per play, is not great, especially when you take those takeaways out of the equation. And they have been hit hard by injuries. We mentioned Gregory Rousseau didn't play last week. Von Miller came back, only played about 20 snaps. I'm sure he'll probably get up to around 40 this week as he continues.
Matt Milano's out, right?
Matt Milano's out.
What happened
for the
to him?
year.
I know
He
his
broke
knee.
his leg and hurt his knee.
Oh gosh.
So he's on IR. He's out for the year. Tre'Davious White is out for the year. They lost Daquan Jones, one of their very good defensive tackle pass rusher. He tore his pec. He's out for the year. So there are a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball here, JC. So maybe if you can get Saquon back, maybe you could do something in the run game here, which is to our point we were talking about previously. They like to keep those 2 safeties deep in cover 6, cover 4, cover 2.
There's opportunity
Maybe
there.
you can get something going in the running game a little bit.
Yeah, and the Giants have to do that. The Giants have to do it. If Saquon plays this week, I know he'll be, the focal point. And if he doesn't play, I still think the Giants need to try to run the football, and I'm talking about upwards of 30 carries, which I know that sounds like a lot, but the Giants need to do that. They haven't proven that they can be a successful passing offense, especially with the offensive line being depleted as it is and not playing well when they are healthy. And then now that, they put in Thomas last week, and I was like, okay, that's not Andrew Thomas. Which Thomas is that? Jalen Thomas, right, just got activated from the practice squad, and it's just like that's how bad the offensive line is, that you get a guy that literally just got activated, and then people are calling for Pugh to play. I'm like, Pugh just got here. He took over a year for football. He's not playing anytime soon.
And he said yesterday he weighs 292 pounds.
Yeah, he said he's down 30 pounds. He looks great. But
and he actually said he feels good. He thinks he can play it that way. He's quicker, but for a guard, 292.
A guard, right? You're not asking him to play tackle.
Tackle, you might be able to get away with that. At guard, that's going to be a little bit tough, I think.
Yes,
right?
Yes, and especially because you haven't done it. Like if he was playing at that for 3 years, it's like, oh yeah, he's good. Like he's been doing it. Like Kelsey's not a big guy.
No, right.
But Kelsey's always been small. We're talking about the center from the
Jason
Eagles.
Kelsey, yep.
He's always been a lighter safety center. He can move very well, but Pugh hasn't been. So he has to learn how to play with this new 290-pound body. Looks great. Look, face looks good, but.
And he even said on Wednesday that it was his first padded practice since he tore his ACL, and he says, "Yeah, I didn't run with the first team. I ran with the scout team."
Yeah, man.
That should tell you. I think that tells you what you need to know, and that it's probably
don't
not
get it
twisted
twisted.
This week.
When he's ready to go, he's a good player.
Yeah, and he can help.
Yes,
sure.
he's a good player. He will help this line, but I just don't think he's ready yet. And even when I spoke to him in the locker room when he first came in, I was like, "Hey man, how you doing?" He's like, "Yeah, just give me a couple weeks," because he understood. Like everybody knows when you take a year off of football,
and again, he was hurt. It's not like he just was hanging out. He hurt himself. Yeah,
right. And he wasn't like here in training camp. He wasn't nowhere in training camp. Like usually somebody gets hurt, they do something in OTAs, they're doing training on their own, and then they get acclimated to training camp and they get worked in, and then all of a sudden they get activated. He has none of that. So definitely guys, I know people are probably calling for Pugh to play. Be patient. He probably will play in the next, I guess, month or so. But be patient with him, and hopefully, he could really hold up with that 290-pound frame playing guard.
All right, 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. Let's go to Scott in New Mexico, who'll lead us off. Scotty Doo, what's up, pal?
Hi, guys. How you doing today? First of all, yesterday's show was great, John. And to your credit, you gave a superlative analysis of where the Giants are and so forth, so you should be commended. And the guests as well. And actually, BBK is the only bright spot in the season so far. But I had before I get to my main question, I want to go back to a comment that Hugo made yesterday. It was reflected with Len, and I had made the same comment in a different way to both Paul and Lance, which is a lack of physicality. And I want to contrast it with a player in the Seattle game, a rookie, Devin Weatherspoon. And I'm negating the pick six, so forget that. Just the way he was hitting people. I think he hit Gary Brightwell and basically knocked him into the 22nd century. And that's the kind of impetus I think most Giant fans are recognizing the Giants don't have. So that's one issue I hope you address. One of the other issues you had highlighted in your analysis yesterday of the infamous play, I guess, of Trey Hawkins covering Tyreek Hill. Is there any rule that I know of where Brian Dable, or I don't know if the OCs or DCs can call timeouts, but when they saw the play develop, was there a reason somebody wouldn't have called a timeout and said, this is not going to work this way?
Yeah, Wink was not asked that specifically today. He was asked about that play, and he said, as JC and I kind of surmised on Sunday, that was I believe Wink, the quote was a schematic issue. So, no, the plan was not to have one-on-one press Trey Hawkins with no help. He would not dig into it deeper than that, but he said it was a schematic issue. Yeah, you can call timeout there, I suppose, but you're in, yes,
Why didn't
you can. I don't know. It's a good question. I think that's a tough thing to see in real time.
Okay.
And maybe they thought their players could adjust on the field to whatever, issue the formation the Dolphins put the defense in kind of made for their defensive scheme. But I don't know the answer directly to that question.
Okay. The other question is on the famous, what we call the push play or the brotherly love play. Is there any rule that says you couldn't have brought in Dexter Lawrence and actually, as they did in the 85 game, Chicago using William in the refrigerator, Perry?
No. You can put whoever you want. You can put whoever you want on the field.
So why didn't they? If you have a suspect out, Dexter Lawrence is the strongest player, I believe, on a Giant team.
I mean, Scott, on those plays, they put, Shane Lemieux, another offensive lineman behind the quarterback? It's not like they didn't put big guys behind him to push him.
But Dexter Lawrence, if he can't move somebody 1 yard, he's getting paid too much money. And I would think that would be the obvious thing to do. I'm just stating this. I'm not saying that's what they should do, but it seems obvious to me that's the kind of thing they should do. And these are coaching things. And the other thing that I think
you're reaching on that one a little bit, Scott, to be honest with you. I think that's a bit of a reach on that one, to be honest with you.
All right. Well, my main concern, and I know you have a bank of calls, so I'll end it here. The Giants are obviously having a bad time. No matter how you state it, they're not playing well. And we know all the excuses. The one thing I want to know for next year, how are they going to retain some of the players, specifically Saquon Barkley and Xavier McKinney, which you're going to be interviewing, and say, why would I want to be on this team? And I'm not saying this in a bad way. I'm just saying, why would I want to be on this team if I know it's going to take another 2, maybe even 3 years before we really develop an offensive line that's cohesive enough to block and protect Daniel Jones. And I'll be glad to take your answers off the air, guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Well, how about I'll go to my player there who has been in free agent situations before, and how that process works and what a player's mindset is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot of players see it like that, especially because every year, there's a lot of optimism coming into every year, and you always think that you got better. That is always not the case, of course, but I don't really think there was ever a year but like, oh, we're not as good as we were last year in the preseason or the off season. It just doesn't happen, and the Giants will get better. Hopefully they get better sooner than later, but I think they will improve by year's end, and I think that has to do a lot with the culture that they established here. And I know it's rough right now because once you're losing and you lose consistently in the way that the Giants are losing, it hurts the morale of every single person in the locker room. So I know the locker room is probably not as enthusiastic as it was in early this year or in 2022, and that's rough, but all of these guys, no matter who we talk about, what position, every single player wants to play in this league for an extensive period of time, and usually the guys that don't want to play that long and they have, they don't play in the league. I know guys like that. I know guys that didn't really like football and got into the league and said, I'm good, and they get out. I don't think there's like that on his team, so a person like Xavier McKinney, he would love to stay here, and he would love to be one of the reasons that the Giants bounce back.
And I actually do think he has played fairly well this year. Like, I don't think he's been a big part of the problem here.
No, definitely not. And of course, Saquon Barkley, I think he wants to stay a Giant. He said it in the past. And of course, him being hurt right now puts that at jeopardy. And the Giants do have to figure that out. That's going to be another talking point no matter how the rest of this year goes, because he's missed the time that he's missed. No matter what he does for the rest of the year, how productive he is, hopefully he doesn't get hurt again. Hopefully he can play for the rest of the year. The talking point after this season is what they're going to do with Saquon. That's going to be one of the main talking points.
It is, and I think how the rest of the season goes is going to dictate, and this is even the Saquon specifically, but in general, what their off-season posture is going to be here, JC, is going to be determined by how the rest of the season goes.
Yes.
Even if they start as poorly as they have, if they finish winning 7-9 or something like that, and they finish with 7 or 8 wins, and once everyone gets healthy, this team looks like what we thought they were going to look like at the start of the year, then I think it's a different conversation. If we get to the end of the year and you're staring at a top 5 draft pick and you're like, all right, well, maybe this is more of a, down to the studs situation, then I think your plans change a little bit. So I think that's going to really, I think having those conversations now, I just don't think we have enough information to really, make those types of decisions at the current time. 201-939-4513. Go subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast, folks. A couple great episodes up there right now. We have Bob Papa's Perspective, going back, talking to Ahmad Bradshaw, one of JC's boys, and O.J. Anderson about a couple historic games against the Bills. My interview with Sean O'Hara, we go knee-deep into offensive line talk a couple episodes ago, and I think it's up. Lance Meadow had a chance to talk to Tony Dungy, Hall of Fame coach. He covers, he works for NBC on Sunday Night Football, and he had a good 20-minute conversation with him about the game on Sunday night against the Bills. So go check all that out on the Giants Huddle podcast, presented by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. It's on the Giants app, podcast platforms everywhere. Just search for Giants Huddle. And if you're on, by the way, Apple Podcasts, folks, leave us a 5-star positive review if you like what you hear. It really does help us out, whether it's for this show, Giants Huddle, or a brand new podcast, the Giants Hangout, which we will be recording with Jonathan Casillas, Madeline Burke, and Brandon London as soon as this show is concluded. Back to the phones. RJ and George is up next. Hi, RJ.
Hey, how you doing, fellas? You guys all right?
Yeah, we're good, man. What's up?
Good. Yeah, I just want to talk a little about the offensive line and how, we all have to be patient with it. It's tough because we're all looking for that instant success. But, when you're passing and playing, it's going to take more time. And that's what they're experiencing. They experience a bunch of guys who are going in and out. There's no stability there. And until we have some stability on that offensive line, we're going to struggle, unfortunately. And I just want to hear your thoughts about that. And then the second thing, and then I'll close, is if you notice the time that Tyreek Hill scored on that touchdown, the rookie there, I think it's Jackson, 37, at
Hawkins.
The last second, Who was it?
Hawkins.
I'm sorry.
Hawkins. Yep.
Yeah, Hawkins went from the bottom of the screen to the top of the screen to sprint to Tyreek Hill. He was probably there 1 to 2 seconds, and then the play occurred. And I don't know if he needed over the top help from Xavier. I don't know if that was Xavier's fault that he wasn't there, because he was beat by about 5 yards on that pass. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that, and I'll hang up, and you guys have a good one.
Thanks, RJ. JC, why don't you take that?
Well, we talk about the offensive line. I mean, patience is the key for sure, and you know they got two practice squad guys playing on a line that already was porous before they were playing already. You know, and definitely be patient.
Of course, the more you're patient you are, the better chance your quarterbacks have of getting continually pounded, which is a problem.
Yeah,
that's why it's hard to be patient, because it impacts everything else you're trying to do.
It's rough. It's rough, and then like everybody watches all the film. Like it's not like you're gonna surprise defenses. You know, they know the weakest link right now on the offense. You know, and they're gonna have. I mean, they don't even have to have like stunts. They're just beating the guys. You know, and
quickly too.
Yeah, and it's rough. It's rough. It's really rough to watch. You know, and with Collins, Lyle Collins was here. Did we let him out the building?
Well, I don't even know how healthy he is at this point. Remember, he also tore his ACL last year. So
I thought about that just now when I was talking. It's hard, guys. It's frustrating to watch. We feel it too. You know, and the Giants feel it too. Of course, the quarterbacks feel it. You know, so this is something that the Giants need to figure out, because if they can't improve from what they've been putting out the last few weeks, it's going to continue going this way. Like there's nobody that's going to be like, okay, we're not going to abuse these guys because the offensive line is weak. They're going to keep doing it. You know, so it's definitely going to get worse. What was the second question?
He had a question. He mentioned something about Hawkins with the
coming late over, and then Xavier McKinney. I don't really know. Like they won't divulge that information to us. I don't really know. I think something happened where either he was doing the wrong thing, or somebody didn't help him out.
Well, yeah, exactly. I don't know what it was. There was some kind of issue. Remember,
I think it was probably the second part.
And they were matching up at that point. Adoree had Tyreek Hill most of the game. Banks had Jalen Waddle. And Adoree wasn't on the field for that particular snap because I think he was either getting a rest or something like that. So, or maybe he was momentarily banged up, whatever the case might have been. So, you know, Hawkins, I think, was trying to locate Hill. That's why he was late going over there. It wasn't like a left and right situation. So, just something to keep in mind. And this brings up a point from yesterday's show about the offensive line. Somebody called up and said, you know, why'd they let Nick Gates go? I think that was a big mistake. And we talked about how, well, you know, he did get a decent contract, which we're all happy to see. And then William Broderick wrote in, talked about how, well, the Giants did sign J.C. Hassenauer from the Steelers. That was someone they thought could help as a, you know, true center backup. Then he goes and tears his triceps. Front offices are always up against it. This is me reading the email of where they want to allocate money. You know, GMs have like a 60% hit rate. And at some point, the Giants have to catch some type of break here in terms of injuries. And then he just kind of goes on and says, you know, is it any surprise that Daniel Jones looks a little shell-shocked back there? Who wouldn't be? So it's just, you know, how do you try to can you max protect on every play? But then that takes receivers out of it. You know, just kind of what are your answers here as you try to move forward? And I think the point we make, you know, there are no easy answers.
Yeah.
It just kind of is what it is.
Yep. And they're trying to figure out the right combination of offensive linemen, you know, and
yeah. The problem is that guys keep getting hurt, so they really can't stick with one.
I know. It sucks, man, when we see guys go down from a you know, like I said already, a porous line, which we haven't played, you know, well this year at all. And then you see more guys go down, and then you insert practice squad players who just got signed to the practice squad not long before they started playing. The Giants are in a dire situation. You know, it's a very rough situation, and when you can't protect and you can't push guys off the ball to run the football, like you're seeing what happens. Like this is what happens when you can't protect your quarterback, you can't get a push to run the football. This is what it looks like.
They're trying to find one thing, JC, that they could hang their hat on offensively and say, all right, we know we can do this. Then once the other team tries to stop that, maybe that opens up something else. The problem is that they haven't even been able to find that one thing where you can say, all right, we know we can do this well with the way the offense is functioning right now.
Yeah, no, they cannot say that. Like you saying that right now, I'm like, no, they can't, because they right now they can't do anything well right now, you know. So they do have to figure that out. I agree with you. And it's really tough to watch, you know. But I'm not gonna say I trust in them because, and I'm talking about the coaches and the players, because it's not all about what they have and what they could do, because that could change because of injury.
It's a matter of what's at their disposal.
Right, at the time, because you start a game with the 5, okay, cool. We saw it the last few weeks. Yeah, you start the game with the 5, and then people get hurt.
First drive, John Michael Schmidt's out of the game 2 weeks ago.
So it's like that's the game though, and you know the Giants have to figure out, you know, what they're going to do moving forward on the offensive line, and then also once somebody goes down, which somebody will go down, you know, who they're going to insert in. And I don't know, maybe they have to consider doing a different approach to how they're trying to block plays, you know, and I don't know, man. This is really unfamiliar territory for me, because like the amount of injuries that happen among the offensive line is absurd. You know, I don't know if I've ever been a part of any franchise that was like that, from high school all the way through college. I mean, through the NFL, you know, and it's rough.
It is. All right, let's go to, hey, Dom, do me a favor. Pick up Charlie and Len. Both of them have called in already once this week. We're on our one caller a week thing. Still want to make sure to give other people a chance to get in, so just let them know that. And we'll love to hear from them next week again. I'm just trying to keep the lines free for other callers, okay? Let's go to Alex in Syracuse. He's up next. Alex, what's going on, pal?
Not much. How you guys doing today?
We're doing great.
All right.
Always glad to help bump Charlie. Always a fan of that.
Oh, we love Charlie.
I'm just kidding.
That's okay.
I'm just kidding. I love Charlie too, man. He keeps it interesting. I thanks to RJ, he kind of took my point about the offensive line, so that gets that out of the way. But I agree, man. Like, I think patience is obviously hard in this situation, but I do think that there's reason to be optimistic that, and I think, like you said, JC, like, I think by the end of the year we're going to see some improvement there, and I think hopefully going into next year even more improvement. I think injuries have been really difficult for us. But I got one point and one quick question. My point is, I'm a big DJ guy. Obviously, it's awful that he's hurt and that he's been getting hit as much as he is. But I'm also a little excited about the idea that maybe we get to see Tyrod Taylor play this weekend. I'm a big Tyrod guy since back in Buffalo. I actually think he's still kind of underrated, though he's had some success in the league. I'm a really big fan of his. And I actually think that sometimes in a situation like we have right now on a 1-4 team, you get a guy like Tyrod coming in, maybe that could be the kind of new spark that helps ignite something, right? I mean, I don't know if it will be, but I like Tyrod a lot. I have a lot of faith in that guy. And I hope, for Daniel's sake, on some level, at least for this week, and also if he's going to come in and play, where better than to go back to Buffalo? And I think that there's something interesting about that storyline. So I'd love to see Tyrod play this week personally. And I hope he can have some success. And my question, I'll take both these off the air. My question for you guys is specifically for JC. One thing I've noticed, and again, this is me reading between the lines a little bit here, but when you watch the interviews with these guys post-game and midweek, it seems like there's a little bit of the fun and the spark that they had last year. And again, of course, they were winning last year, but it wasn't easy sailing last year. And it just seemed like they had this sort of like they were having more fun through it. And even in the beginning of the season, before the losses happened and hopes were high, I didn't quite see that same level of enthusiasm and fun. And obviously now you're 1-4 and you're where you're at. So my question for you, JC, is you know, how do you cultivate that, and how do you get that back, especially now given where they are in the season? Is there a way? What is the kind of spark that's needed to kind of reignite that and to get that back in the locker room?
You gotta,
appreciate the call. Thank you.
You got to win.
Yeah, guys, thank you.
That's it. You got to win.
Winning's fun.
Yeah, winning is
not.
very fun. Losing is not good at all. You know, I remember my days in Tampa where we were like 1-6 to start the season. I'm a guy who hates losing, and I was miserable. I would go home and have an attitude. I would be upset in the post game, you know, like, and it would mess up my week. Not just like the game day. Like, I was like that, you know, and I'm pretty sure a lot of guys are similar to how I was when I played, because people care about what they're doing. You know, people care that their family's watching, their fans are watching, you know, their friends are watching, and it's rough, you know, and you want to put a good product out there. You want to play well. You want your team to play well, you know, and when you're not, it's hard to keep that same type of positive, enthusiastic energy. It's just, I mean, it's almost impossible to do, you know, but once they win, the locker room will be happy, and then the week be a little bit better. They can tie another win in there, and then it'll start getting a little bit better. But until they win, it's gonna be like this. This is how it's gonna be. You can't put a spark in a losing, like a team that's losing consistently. You can't be like, all right, guys, let's get fired up. Like it just not gonna happen.
Yeah, it's hard. To his other point on the quarterbacks, I'll just say this. I think mentally for Daniel, let alone physically, week off might not be the worst thing at this point.
Yeah.
Kind of reset the mind. You get back, try to be comfortable again. Because what he's been through the last couple weeks, and this goes back to the email that we got, it's just that, you go out there every week and you just keep getting hit again and again and again. It's going to leak into your subconscious and your internal clock's going to speed up. It's just the way it is. Maybe a game where you sit there and you're like, all right, I got to get everything straight here. I got to watch. I got to figure it out. Maybe when you come back, you'll feel a little bit better about what's going on around you. And then I know you're a big Tyrod Taylor fan, too. I know you're pretty psyched to see him play as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I just
if he starts, of course. We don't know who's
right. I just hope that they can protect him. That's it. Because Tyrod, I don't think he's as durable as Daniel Jones is. I said this before. Daniel Jones is one of the most durable players, not just quarterbacks in the NFL. The amount of the hits he take in every single week consistently is absurd. I think is absurd. He does it to himself sometimes, and then sometimes he can't control it. He's getting hit from behind, pause, and he can't do certain things in the pocket. He can't see certain blitzes. That first Witherspoon blitz, he couldn't see that one. But then he doesn't protect himself when he runs the ball, and he just keep getting up. But it just can't. It accumulates too. So
and Tyrod's a smaller guy too.
Yeah, he's not as
That's
big.
The problem.
Yeah, and Daniel Jones is a big human being. He's like 6'6", probably 230, 235. And he's all of, that height. And Tyrod's, maybe 6 foot, possibly, maybe 200 even. He's not a big guy. And, they have to protect him. And if not, you're going to see what you saw from Tyrod last week, which he got in the game and ran around, which he can do. But again, once you run around, that kind of takes away that pocket protection that you have. And the guys, they will take shots on you. I think Tyrod does a better job in sliding, better job in getting out of bounds than Daniel Jones did. So hopefully he can protect himself once he escapes the pocket and, tries to create some things on his own. But yes, if he plays and Daniel Jones doesn't go, I'll be excited. And if Daniel Jones does go, I'll be excited too. But I like what you said. Maybe this is a time for him not only to get right physically, and take a week off and have a physical break, but also a mental break as well. He's had a tough, few weeks to start the season.
Yeah. 201-939-4513. Let's go back to the phones and say what's up to Favio in Union, New Jersey. What's up, Fav?
How we doing, guys?
What's up?
One, I want to say thank you to Charlie for not getting on the line today. I am going to miss his rant, but I'll look forward to it next week.
And by the way, Favio, this is the second straight day he has tried to break the one call a week policy, so he is officially on warning, Charlie. Do not try again. Dom's all over it. Dom's on
it. Hey. Well, guys, I want to talk about the offensive and defensive line. And, JC, I know you definitely have a lot of experience with this in practice, right? Obviously it sucks to have injuries, right? But they say iron sharpens iron, right? And I feel like right now with these injuries, it's been tough, right? We don't have the iron in there. We have, whatever it might be, the bronze, right? These guys might not be the best. So how much does that affect the defensive line when they're trying to go against them in practice? Squad one going against squad one, and I'm happy Thibodeau's starting to get there and he's starting to get some sacks now, right? But the rest of these guys really seem like they're having a difficult time getting past these offensive lines of these other teams. And I'm wondering how much of it is that they're not going against the top guys on our squad, and we don't really have that talent in there to really make them, push them to the point where they're getting into the games, and it always feels, level.
Well, it's a great question, and I think that's why people consider the offensive line, that group of five, the starters.
Right.
They're one of the most integral parts of a team. Because yes, you protect the quarterback, you're establishing run game, you're a communicator as well in the front of the defense that you're going against. But then also in practice, you're going against your defensive linemen, and they do good on good here. Not that much, but they do good on good. And always hear it from younger players when they come in.
And by the way, what Casillas means by that is the ones go against the ones in practice.
And you always hear this from younger players or players that is going against a very talented all-pro type of player. They always say, man, I'm going against that guy at practice, and he makes me better. So I hear your question. And like I said, that's why offensive line is so important, because it's not only about what they're doing offensively against other teams, but also if you have a great offensive line, like let's call San Fran with Trent Williams. Trent Williams is going against Drake Jackson. He's going against Bosa.
Yeah.
He's going against those guys. These are literally all pro players going against each other. So when you have another guy that comes in and rushes against them, they're going to get an all pro player, and they have to be able to have the skill set to beat that player. So yes, that's why the offensive line needs to improve, because it has such more of an impact than what you guys see on Sundays. That was a fantastic question.
So it's affecting both sides of the ball at this point. Right?
Yes, not as much, but yes.
Thank you, Bob.
Yes.
Appreciate the call, man. Go ahead, finish up. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, to the point with the offensive line and putting them in positions for success. I don't know how much DJ has really progressed with this in his career. I mean, I still feel like day in or week in, week out, we see, these missed assignments on the offensive line, and maybe it's really, pinning it not fair to Evan Neal, right? He's under a lot of pressure at this point, but it feels like every other week he's just flat out missing a guy on the edge, right? And he's just going inside and he's blocking no one, or even blocking, just shoving his own other lineman in the back. I mean, is that on DJ there? Is that on Neal? And is this something where if Tyrod does play this next week, being the proven vet that he has been for the last 10 plus years, that this is something where he might actually be able to really, help the team be set up for success there.
I appreciate the call, Flav. Another really good question, by the way. Excellent call.
Good job.
And Tony Dungy actually talks about this on the Giants Huddle podcast that just went up today. And he talked about how it's very underrated, how
Dungy?
Yeah, we got
I got
Dungy.
to check that out.
Yeah, it was pretty good. So and he talked about how the chemistry with an offensive line in terms of doing stuff like that can be very underrated, JC, where passing off stunts, right? Communicating those protections inside out, understanding pre-snap who has what guy, right? For example, on that Evan Neal play that he's talking about, he thought he had the blitzing linebacker, but he didn't have to get the blitzing linebacker. The guard could have taken him. He should have taken the outside guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But is that like a bad Mike identification pre-snap by the center because John Michael Schmitz isn't there? Is it they identified it right, but they just heard it wrong on the outside? Like, there's a million different things that can happen, especially when you're not that familiar with the guy next to you, that can make a situation where even if you're outmanned, you're not used to working together, it can make things even worse.
Yeah. And I'm not making any excuses, but you just don't know exactly what happened on that play.
No idea.
Yep. I'm going to put it on him, though, because he's a defensive lineman that was just free. But I really don't know. But I really don't know. I'm just going to blame him because, he's been getting so much heat. And I'm not going to not give him heat. I'm giving him heat too, People's like, I want to lay off him. No, keep on because he has to play better. He does have to play better. He's one of the only guys that's healthy from the beginning of the year. That's playing his natural position.
The only guy that's healthy.
That's playing his natural position.
Yes, that's correct.
So he definitely has to play better, and I think he will. He has to, because if he doesn't play well, they're going to move him. Like, he has to play better, and we talked about this before. They're not going to do it anytime soon, but if he continues, they're going to move him. Like, because he has to play better. Like, the tackle positions, they're very difficult positions to play. And I speak about this every week because they're going against the greatest, I think, athletes in the world, and those pass rushers, defensive ends, linebackers, stand-up guys. And they got to get those corner blitzes, those linebacker blitzes off the edge.
Sure.
So he has to play better because he's protecting the most valuable commodity in the whole New York Giants organization in Daniel Jones. So he has to play better. So I'm not going to let him off the hook. But the offensive line together, they have to step up. Like, for real. Whoever's out there, they have to step up. Coach Johnson has to step up. They have to play better because the Giants will not be able to do anything against any team if this offensive line cannot improve. It just can't. Like, people thinking, after Buffalo, it gets a little easier. It doesn't get easier.
Not for the lines. Now, the overall, you're not facing Josh Allen again. But guess what? The Washington and Jet defensive lines,
that's what I'm saying.
They're better than Buffalo's. They're better than Miami's. They're better than Seattle's.
It doesn't get better, I mean, it's...
Up front, it doesn't. No.
Yeah.
Up front, it doesn't.
And then you talk about, the the part of the offense, the part of the Giants team that needs to improve, that's the strengths of the other teams that we're going to play after the Bills. Like you said, the defensive line for the Commanders, very tough, very strong. And then following week, you got Quentin Williams. You got, there's dogs, bro.
No, dude, they have 6 dudes. It's not even just 4 dudes. It's 6 dudes.
So it's not going to get any easier. It's not going to be all right, now we're going to hit an easy stretch of the season. It's not going to be like that, So the offense needs to improve. The offensive line needs to improve. And I think if they do improve, you're going to start seeing signs of what we think the potential of this team could possibly do. Because I think that's the weakest part right now of the Giants. And it's a collective effort. It's not just on the individuals on the offensive line. I think it has to do with coaching. It has to do with play calling. And it has to do with Daniel Jones' performance. It has to do with Tyrod Taylor if he's playing too.
The running game,
it's
all that.
All of those things combined. I'm not going to put it on one guy because it's not just one guy.
It is a team-wide thing.
Absolutely. And then also defense too. I put on defense last week. They came up with 3 turnovers. They scored a defensive touchdown. I think they stepped up in the way they made plays and they caught the ball. They didn't drop the ball, and they made plays, but then they got to take another step forward because they can't allow Buffalo to go up and down the field like they allow Miami to go up and down the field because they're just as explosive.
All right, I got 3 more calls. I got a couple emails I want to get to them, so let's get to it. Let's go to Eric in upstate New York. I want to stick on the offensive line because he wants to touch on that topic here, Dom, on line 1. Eric, what's up?
Hi, guys. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Love the show.
I appreciate it, man. What's up?
Yeah. So I had a couple questions about the injuries with John Michael Schmitz and Andrew Thomas. It's we hear, every week they're day-to-day or they're not getting better. But what do we know the extent of, for example, with John Michael Schmitz's injury? Because all we know is the shoulder.
That's all we know on John Michael Schmitz. We don't know, and they do not give those details out.
It's so frustrating.
Now, I can tell you, Andrew Thomas is a bad hamstring pull. I mean, that one we saw on tape.
Yeah.
That one is not a mystery. It's just a bad hamstring.
And should we be concerned about that? Is this something that we might not see him before the bye, for example?
The bye's another, month and a half at this point? I don't know. Look, a really bad hamstring, JC, you can attest to this, can be up to 6 weeks. That's just the way it goes. It can be 6 to 8. But it's a little different for an offensive lineman versus a corner or wide receiver too. So I would hope we would see him before the bye, Eric. But I'm not looking at MRI machines. I'm not talking to trainers. I know if I did, they wouldn't tell me, and I couldn't say it on the show anyway. But it's not great.
And then also too, once they start, you're not going to get anything from Daboll. That's it. Once somebody gets hurt, just be all right. We'll just wait till he comes back.
Knee day-to-day, knee week to week.
Yeah, Daboll is not going to give guys anything. That's just how he does business. That's just how it is.
And that's where he's come from. New England, Alabama, et cetera, et cetera.
He's just not going to give you guys, so it leaves us to speculate, which we're not going to really do too much of.
Because it's useless.
Yeah, because I don't want to guess, even though, yes, I know, I can see somebody get hurt and I can say, oh, that's an ACL. Oh, that's an MCL, right? But who knows how long that takes?
Yeah,
those are varying things.
Right. Yeah, that's the one thing. It's just you listen, and he's just so stoic there. Same answer every week, day to day, or he's getting better, or he's not.
It's rough. It's rough.
It is what it is, Eric. Appreciate the call, man. Good stuff. All right, let's go to David in Michigan. He's been holding the longest. David, what's up?
Hey, guys. Thanks a lot. You have done a really good job the last week of talking me off the ledge.
Oh, that's good.
Right. I know you guys disagree. I know Paul disagrees with this, but the only difference between 1 and 16 and 6 and 11 to me is a lower draft pick. I don't care if we go 6. If we win 6 games. Frankly, I don't see us winning 6 games. So, but on the injuries,
and by the way, just real quick, as a fan, as someone that rooted for the New York Knicks for a very long time, I completely understand the way you look at it from a fan perspective. Because as someone that rooted for the Knicks, I'm like, guys, don't win 27 games, just win 15 games. You get the best odds in the lottery. I was sitting there and saying the same thing. Yeah. So I totally understand where you're coming from, but with the competitive inside a building with a football team, that's not, and Jason, you can speak to this as a player, that's not how the front office, the coaching staff, the players,
definitely
ownership,
not.
anyone in the building is going to look at it. So, there are definitely 2 ways to see it.
I get that the team and the organization is going to go out and try to win every game. I get that. It's fine. I'm not suggesting we tank. I'm just saying I don't care.
Okay, that's fair.
We're not going to make the playoffs. I just want a higher draft pick.
No, but David,
I want to get the
but
I want to get the offensive tackle from Penn State.
No, I totally get it. But at the same time, you do want the younger players on your team showing they're getting better. And if you get that, here's the thing, though. If that happens, you're probably going to get more wins out of it.
Yeah.
So I would almost... I want my young guys to show they're getting better. Like, if they win 2 more games, but it's because Evan Neal has turned the corner and he shows he can be a good offensive tackle, well, guess what? Give me the wins.
Yeah, they'll improve.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. The offensive will improve.
So I have a question for Jonathan in particular because, you're the athlete. You have played on these fields and the turfs. I'm trying to figure out 2 things. One, are the complaints about the turf legit? I've never walked or run on this kind of turf before. Jonathan, I'm guessing even if it's just lately and even as a retired player, you've been on that turf and like based on your body, like how it feels and you must have an opinion about whether this kind of turf is harmful to the players. And that's the first question. The second question I have, I cannot figure out why the players, particularly offensive linemen over the last several years, have been injury prone. I did a random check of players that I just thought in the past I remember being super durable. And so, I look at David Deal, for example. I mean, this guy played the equivalent of like 8 seasons without missing a game. George Martin, going back further, one of my favorite Giants ever. George Martin played the equivalent, get ready for this, as a defensive end. He played 10 seasons without missing a game. Like, what is the difference today between on the turf, because I did play once on the old Giant Stadium, and that field was like concrete.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was bad.
That was concrete with a green like carpet over it.
Because I played on a high school team, we were very good, so we got to play in the old Giant Stadium once. But Jonathan, help me out here. What is it today versus then, where players are just not as durable as they used to be? And secondly, please give me some insight about whether this turf issue is a real thing or not.
Appreciate the call.
Yeah, I'll talk about the turf first. So turf definitely, it's a little bit harder. It's a lot more rigid than grass with dirt underneath it.
I'll tell you what, the new stuff is pretty soft though. Like when I go out there and walk and I run on it, just when I'm exercising afterwards, like you hit like areas and it's like you almost bounce a little bit off that thing.
It's a little more solid. There's not that much give, and you do feel it in your joints.
I buy that.
You do feel it, especially consistently. And I remember in New Orleans, right? And this is my first, like in Wisconsin, we were when I went to college, it was all turf, all indoor practice.
No grass at all.
No grass.
Okay.
It was all turf. And I got to New Orleans, and we had an indoor with turf. Of course, the stadium is turf, but we had practice fields that were grass, just like here, basically just like here. And we would be outside, and you could hear from the vets, oh, man, thank you, outside my knees. And then as I started playing, I'm like, man, I can feel the difference just by the consistent pounding, because that's what you're doing. When you're playing football and basketball, any sport you're doing, you're pounding your joints, you're pounding your knees, your low back, and it's constant cutting, it's constant that. And that, I think that accumulates over time. But my worst lower body injury happened on grass. I tore my Liz Frank against the Tennessee Titans on grass.
Did you really? Yeah.
So it's just like,
last week, Matt Milano broke his leg and tore his ACL. Do you know where that was on? Yep. It was on grass in London.
Nick Chubb was in grass too. I mean, things happen. Just football, and as far as the durability thing, I do think that guys back in the day were a little bit more durable than guys now, and I throw myself in that loop because I wasn't durable when I played.
Do you want to know my theory on the whole thing?
What?
Here's my theory on the whole thing, and Howard kind of agrees with me, which kind of makes me a little bit scared. But here's my theory on the thing. Guys now train so much more to be high performance athletes than they did before, right? Where guys are running faster, jumping higher, they're stronger. I mean, just look at Saquon's legs.
Yeah.
Like, guys didn't look like that 20 years ago.
They're lifting weights. They're blowing up their muscles.
Right, and
ligaments.
I don't think their tendons and ligaments can handle all those explosive actions. So the guys back then, you know, maybe they're not going quite as fast. Maybe they're not exploding the way they did. Now, some of the guys did. This isn't a uniform
I think
thing.
that's fair.
And maybe the soft, it's not the soft tissue, it's the connecting tissue. The ligaments and the tendons can't handle the extra force from all the high performance training. So while the guys are quote unquote in better shape,
right, bigger, stronger,
they're in
faster,
better shape to perform at a higher level, but maybe not in better shape to perform for a longer period of time and staying healthy. Like, even go back in the day, you watch the Olympics, all these guys that are sprinters and stuff, they're always getting hamstrings, they're always getting little nicks and things like that. And that's kind of my theory on why maybe guys run into some more issues.
I think that's a fair analysis, you know, because I was a guy who was a weight room guy. I was a guy who I had to be because I was a lighter guy. I'm not a big dude playing linebacker, but I was always in the weight room, always, you know, benching, lifting, squatting, doing all that stuff. And I was hurt my entire career. This sucked.
Back in the day, these giant guys, they were playing like pickup basketball leagues in the off season.
Smoking cigarettes.
Dude, it was just different. They were more like regular guys that were really gifted athletically playing a sport.
And they would lift, but they would lift. They would train, but not train. Like...
But it was much more recovery in the offseason, I think, than you have now, too, right? They don't kind of go right at it again right away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, because now, like, especially you go to a Division I college, like, they're going to put you into, like, a nice weight room program, and you're going to be lifting. They're taping your ankles. They're taping your wrist. They're doing all of that. And some of those things, like you said, I think it's to produce a more explosive, more physically gifted athlete.
And by the way, it does work.
But for the long run, I think they might have to do some research into that, man. I know there's probably some stuff out there. I don't know about it, but yeah.
Again, that's just my theory. I'm not a doctor, but that's my theory. All right, final call of the show is Maurice in Montclair. Then we got to roll. Maurice, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, gentlemen?
What's up, Maurice?
We only got a couple minutes here, Maurice, so I'll get to your point quick.
Okay, I'm about to get to my point quick. Hey, man, let me just run it off by saying it's a mess, gentlemen. I don't like it. If I got to be quick, I'm going to just shoot to the point. It's coaching to me because at some point we got to ask ourselves, if we ain't good as far as protecting for a long period of time, who gives a darn if we pay Daniel all this money and we got these cute weapons? I think the Giants got full of themselves and been trying to just do this little downfield. Oh, no, we can hold up. Here, you come in and block. Just you come in and block. You know what I mean? We're going to get a shot down there. No, we got Breida. Somebody tell me if Breida is just a piece of trash laying around here. The approach we had with Saquon shouldn't stop with Breida. It didn't stop last year when Saquon needed a break. We kept the same approach. Breida probably took a wildcat option and everything. So why we can't give him about 17 totes? Why we can't slow the game down and make easier decisions out there for Daniel? And it's looking disgusting.
Maurice, I'll tell you why. Matt Breida's rushed it 30 times for 82 yards this year. That is under 3 yards per carry. You want to get into third and long every single time? Go run it for 1 yard on first down.
Nah, I got you, but right after I said that, John, I said, yo, why we can't do some easier pass? I mean, like, my thing is just the approach. I feel like, yo, if we got all these issues, as coaches, we should be able to identify and adjust. I don't see no adjustments, fellas.
Nah, see, Maurice, I disagree. They've tried max protecting on play action. They've tried holding tight ends in. They've tried emptying the backfield.
You know what he's not seeing? He's not seeing, Maurice, you're not seeing different results. You're not seeing different results. That's what you're not seeing, which I agree with you with that. But they are trying to do different things. Okay. Nothing's working quite yet. That's what you're seeing.
I got you. I want to be quick, gentlemen. I love what y'all do.
No, you're all good, Maurice. Go ahead. You got it.
Okay. Let me say this then. My thing with today's NFL, yo, it's like I grew up watching the sophisticated quarterback who also was the coach of the extension on the field. Nowadays, everything has gotten changed, gentlemen. It's like, no, here, we'll give you the call. Here, run our system. We'll put you in the right situation. Don't worry about it. Just throw it nice. Yeah, good spiral. Okay, that's what we like. Nah, let Daniel give him some time to get to that line while the play clock is still generous. And I've seen Daniel get in the zone and do this before. So it's just like, I don't know, man. And let me ask this. JC, you a linebacker. You know when you coming after somebody, I got two things for you. You know when you coming after somebody, when you blitz, mathematically, scratching my head right now, shouldn't somebody be open? Like, when they blitz, they just go and get Daniel. It's like, damn, son, somebody's out there, but I don't see the all 22s. I don't get to see what's going on.
Yeah.
But it's just like, yo, what the you know what I'm saying? And here's the second thing, JC. I got two for you. Second thing is, you've been a player. You know the mental side of it. I think people approach us and say, man, these guys is weak, talking up front. And they might round that out to a collective and say, yeah, they just not that good. But up front, we need some dogs, bro. We need, take a page out of Philly book. If it's a guy that, been through an off-field issue, but he's extremely talented, New York Giants, go get him and clean him up, because the Giants have always stayed away from certain people. But it's like, at this point, fellas, we need some dogs. I'm tired of seeing these guys. Last thing, if somebody is beating me this bad and I have to protect my quarterback, fellas, the rules is going out the window. I'm holding on every play because you're not going to embarrass me like that. You're not going to embarrass me like that.
Appreciate the call, man. Good stuff, dude. Appreciate it. Thanks for calling in, man.
Good stuff.
All right, Casey, you want to answer?
Yeah.
Quick,
so first off, he said if you add a blitzer in, shouldn't it be a guy open? No, because there's only 5 eligible receivers that can run down the field, and you could have upwards to 7 defensive backs, or including linebackers into that in coverage. So no, that's not always the case. And yes, I agree. The Giants do need dogs. They do. And I think they do have some, especially along the offensive line. They're not healthy, and I agree with what he said. Like, I always talk about like that mentality, right? That establishing that physical dominance, like doing a little bit extra, maybe getting a little, which Madeline's on right now, being a little bit violent, maybe getting that one penalty because you're doing too much, but you're fighting. And like, who's that? The Arizona Cardinals. The Giants played them, and they played the Commanders, I believe, the week before, and they took a shot on Howell. Right? That was borderline, but at the same time, it's like that fired everybody up on defense. Like, I'm not saying do that, but like that shows me that you're trying to be as physical as you possibly can. You're not going to be soft, and you'll rather take that penalty and allow that dude to run you over. Like, little stuff like that, I feel like that's what he's kind of talking about, that dog mentality. Like, I don't want our team getting penalties. We can't afford to have penalties on top of the plays that we're giving up. But to see the fight, to see that dog mentality, like, I would like to see that more, and the Giants just haven't really showed that consistently. At times, yes, but not consistently.
JC, good stuff. Mm-hmm. Check us out. Pre-game show on Sunday night starting 6:20 on WFAN. JC and I will be with you. Big Blue Kickoff Live is back tomorrow at 12:30, all presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Giants. Thanks for being with us on Big Blue Kickoff Live. We'll see you next time.